This is my final project on the emergence of Canada. On December 24th, 1814, the Treaty of Ghent was signed by British and American representatives at Ghent, Belgium, ending the War of 1812. By terms of the treaty, all conquered territory was to be returned, and commissions were planned to settle the boundary of the United States and Canada. This is the artifact that I'm going to pick for my final project. At this time, Canada was divided into Upper and Lower Canada, while Lower Canada being owned by the French and Upper being Canada owned by the English. The First Nations played a big role in defending Canada. During the War of 1812, Tecumseh gained the alliance of Potawatomi, Ojibwa, Shawnee, Odawa, Kickapoo, and others. And other groups like the Coast Salish and the Metis were in for defending Canada. Britain had upped their transportation. Ever since the War of 1812, it inspired them to up their transportation, get some independent markets and economic independence. Like Britain, ever since the War of 1812, Canada decided that they should get some better transportation, so over the next few years they discussed it and they built the CPR. The British was cut off from the trade after them and America signed the Treaty of Ghent. During the War of 1812, America's trade went through many changes. For example, the Americans made more supplies for their troops in war instead of focusing on the trade, and so that caused their trade to go down a bit. Also, the War of 1812 pushed back indigenous peoples' frontier, increasing the breach between the United States and the British North America colonies. During the War of 1812, Canadian politicians realized that they need to work together, so during the War of 1812, they acted like a nation and they fought to war. They sent their people, First Nations, everyone to war. Later on, this made them realize that they need to become independent. So, later on, in July 1st, 1867, they became the independent country as Canada. At this point, the War of 1812 and the Treaty of Ghent had affected many countries. Now we're going to see how it affected the Americans. It was America that had declared war on June 18th, 1812 against Britain. This is what started the War of 1812. The treaty was really important because it was America's second war for independence. This assured that the British won't make claims to the U.S. territory and that the America's independence was permanent. Also, one of America's victories was on a lake, and it was one of the Great Lakes, so it opened up to Americans' expansion. During the War of 1812, Canada was still British North America. Where the BC area is, it was called New Caledonia at the time. Though, the War of 1812 was also fought there, as well as the First Nations tribes that lived there. The War of 1812 shaped British Columbia and its Great Lakes. Here's my timeline. Napoleon announced his continental system that sets up a blockade to slow all trade to Great Britain. 1807. The Shakespeare incident strains U.S.-British relations. Jefferson and Congress announces the Embargo Act. 1808. James Madison is elected president. 1810. Young congressmen from South and West are elected to Congress. 1811. Shawnee Confederate and Tecumseh begin to organize resistance to U.S. expansion in the Western Territories, Indian efforts supported by the British in Canada. 1812. Madison and Congress declare war against England with no federal support. The British agreed to end impressment, but the American army moved on to Canada in the West. 1813. The first American victories, Battle of Lake Erie and the Battle of Thames. 1814. In Ghent, Belgium, America and British agreed to sign the Treaty of Ghent, which ended the War of 1812.